My name is Noelle Conrad, and I'm 28 years old. I found out about the tumor on a Tuesday. Nothing about that morning felt dramatic at first. It was supposed to be a routine appointment, the kind you grumble through and forget by lunch. I'd been having this nagging pain in my side for weeks, and I expected maybe an antibiotic, maybe a lecture about stress. Instead, I got the careful voice doctors use when they are trying not to scare you too early. That led to more tests, more waiting, more silence in rooms that suddenly felt too cold. Then it turned into this. We need to schedule surgery. The tumor was benign, thankfully, but it was sitting on my kidney in exactly the wrong place. Removal wasn't optional anymore. My doctor said recovery would take at least 4 weeks, and I would need someone with me for at least the first week after the procedure. I nodded like I was absorbing all of it normally. I wasn't. By the time I got back to my car, my hands were shaking so hard I dropped my keys between the seats. The first person I called was my boyfriend. His name was Gavin Martinez, and at that point, I still thought he was the man I was going to marry. He picked up on the third ring. "Hey, babe," I said, trying to steady my voice. "I just got out of the doctor. Remember that pain I've been having?" He said distractedly. I could hear typing in the background. "They found something," I said. "I need surgery." The typing stopped. "Surgery?" he said. "Like serious surgery?" "Yes, April 15th. They need to remove a growth on my kidney." There was a pause. Then he said, "April 15th? Wait, that's the week of Vegas." I closed my eyes. "I know," I said quietly. "I'm sorry." "Maybe you can reschedule." I almost laughed from shock. "Reschedule the surgery?" He sighed like I was the difficult one. "No, I mean, do you know how long we've had this trip planned?" 6 months, I said. "But this is surgery, Gavin. Can't you move it too after I get back?" "It's not a dental cleaning. The surgeon has a waiting list." His tone changed after that. "This is so typical," he muttered. I frowned. "What is?" I finally planned something for myself, and suddenly there's a crisis. For a second, I forgot how to speak. A tumor. He was talking about a tumor like I had timed it to inconvenience him. "I didn't plan this," I said. "I'm scared." "Whatever," he said. "I'll think about it." Then he hung up. I sat in the hospital parking lot for 20 minutes, staring through the windshield, while people walked past carrying coffees and normal lives. I kept telling myself maybe he was just caught off guard. Maybe when he got home, he'd understand. That night, he came home late, dropped his keys on the counter, and looked at me like I was about to start an argument he didn't have the energy for. "So," he said, "I talked to the guys." I was sitting at the table with pre-op instructions spread in front of me. "The guys," I repeated. He nodded once. "And they think it's manipulative that you're asking me to cancel." I stared at him. "Manipulative?" "You've apparently had this for who knows how long," he said with a shrug. "But now suddenly it's urgent, right before my trip." "The doctor said it needs to come out now." "Doctors always say things are urgent," he said. "That's how they make money." There are moments when reality doesn't break loudly. It just shifts enough that nothing sits right anymore. We had been together for 3 years, living together for 1. I knew the way he took his coffee, the way he left one foot outside the blanket, the look on his face when he was about to apologize. But I did not know this version of him. Or maybe I did, and I had just never been inconvenient enough to meet it. "I need someone with me after surgery," I said. "I can't do that alone." He shrugged. "Hire a nurse." I honestly thought I'd misheard him. "What?" "A home nurse. Mason's mom used one after surgery." "You want me to hire a stranger instead of having my boyfriend here?" He crossed his arms. "I want you to stop making me feel guilty about going on a trip I booked months ago." I looked at him for a long second. Then I said, very softly, "I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm trying to understand why you aren't already feeling it." That hit him. I saw it in his jaw before I saw it in his eyes. But instead of sitting with it, he got angry. "You always do this," he snapped. "You make everything emotional so I look like the bad guy. You are leaving me alone during surgery. It's not like you're dying, Noelle." The room went silent. He must have heard how awful that sounded, but his face only shifted toward annoyance, not remorse. He went to the bedroom. I slept on the couch. The next morning, I woke to the smell of his cologne and the sound of cabinet doors closing. He was already dressed for work. "I'm going to Vegas," he said. No softness, no hesitation, just a verdict. "The guys are counting on me. Plus, I already paid for everything." I sat up slowly. "Okay," I said. He frowned. "Okay, that's it?" I looked at him. "What do you want me to say?" He threw his hands up. "Maybe act like I'm allowed to have a life." "Right," I said. "My mistake. Have fun in Vegas while I have kidney surgery." He rolled his eyes. "So dramatic." "It's outpatient?" he asked a second later, like he wanted proof I was exaggerating. "No, 2 to 3 days in the hospital." He grabbed his keys. "Whatever, I'm sure you'll be fine." Then he left. 2 weeks before surgery, I texted him one last time while I was sitting in my car outside the pharmacy. I'm scared. I've never had surgery before. I really need you there. His reply came 3 hours later. LOL. You actually thought I'd cancel my Vegas trip for your surgery? It's not even cancer. Stop being a baby. I read it twice, then once more, because some part of me still hoped I had misunderstood him. I hadn't. So I typed back exactly 2 words. My mistake. That was all. No speech, no argument, no begging. After that, I stopped asking. I called my sister Ruby Conrad that night. She answered on the first ring. Tell me what happened. I hadn't even said hello yet. The second I heard her voice, I had to cover my mouth because I knew if I didn't, I was going to cry so hard I wouldn't be able to speak. And somehow, that was when I understood it for real. Not when the doctor said tumor. Not when Gavin said Vegas. Not even when he told me to stop being a baby. It was when I realized I already knew who would come if I called. And it wasn't the man sleeping in my bed. Ruby listened in silence. When I finished, she said, I'm booking a flight. You don't have to do that. I know, she said. I'm still doing it. I looked around the apartment then. The couch, the half-folded laundry, Gavin's shoes by the door, the life I had been living inside without questioning it enough. And for the first time, the whole place felt temporary. Not broken yet, but already ending. April 15th started in the dark. I woke up at 4:47 a.m. without an alarm and listened to the quiet hum of the apartment. Then I heard movement. Closet doors, a suitcase zipper, shoes on the floor. Gavin! For one stupid second, I thought maybe he'd changed his mind. Maybe he'd stay. Maybe he'd come sit on the edge of the bed and say he was sorry, that Vegas could wait, that he'd be there when I woke up. Instead, he walked out of the bedroom dressed for the airport, suitcase in hand, phone in the other. He stopped when he saw me awake. Oh, he said, you're up. You're leaving now? Yeah, early flight. He checked his watch. Traffic's gonna be bad. Then he leaned down, kissed my cheek like an afterthought, and said, don't die or anything, okay? I didn't respond. He didn't wait for one. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and just like that, he was gone. Ruby arrived at 7:30, breathless, hair in a messy bun, dragging a carry-on behind her like she'd come straight from the airport. The second she saw me, her expression softened. Hey, she said gently. That one word loosened something in my chest. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just hugged me, careful and steady. I've got you, she murmured. And I believed her. At the hospital, Ruby handled most of the check-in while I sat clutching my paperwork. A nurse called my name not long after. Her name tag read Dorothy. She had the kind of calm, practiced energy that made everything feel slightly more manageable. She glanced at her clipboard. The emergency contact is still Gavin Martinez? There was a small pause. No, I said. Change it to my sister, Ruby Conrad. Dorothy looked up briefly, then nodded and made the change. Good, she said. Family's important on days like this. Ruby let out a quiet huff. Yeah, some people know that. Dorothy's pen paused. Boyfriend couldn't make it? Ruby didn't hesitate. He's in Vegas. Dorothy's eyebrows lifted. Vegas? Trip he couldn't cancel, Ruby added dryly. I felt that old flicker of embarrassment and tried to soften it. He booked it before we knew about the surgery. Dorothy nodded slowly. And he still went. It wasn't a question. I gave a tight little smile. Yep, she met my eyes. Well, she said warmly, you're in good hands here. We'll take excellent care of you. The hours before surgery blurred together. Paperwork, vitals, the doctor explaining the procedure again, Ruby making quiet jokes that weren't especially funny but still helped. When they wheeled me toward the operating room, I caught Ruby's hand. Stay, I said. I'm not going anywhere, she replied immediately. That was the last thing I heard before the anesthesia pulled me under. When I woke up, everything felt heavy. My head, my limbs, even my thoughts. But the first thing I noticed wasn't the pain. It was the absence of the pain that had been there for weeks. Ruby was sitting beside my bed with a paper cup of what was probably terrible hospital coffee. The second she saw my eyes open, she leaned forward. Hey, she said softly. Welcome back. It's out, I managed. She smiled. It's out. Surgery went great. Doctor said everything went perfectly. Relief hit me in a quiet wave. Around 6 p.m., my phone started buzzing. Ruby picked it up, glanced at the screen, and said, Guess who finally remembered you exist? I didn't have to ask. What's he saying? She unlocked my phone and read, Noelle, why aren't you answering? Hello? I know you're mad, but this is childish. Pick up your phone. I let out a slow breath. Of course. Want me to respond? I shook my head. No, let him wonder. At 8 p.m., Dorothy stepped in, looking carefully neutral, but there was something almost amused behind it. There's a Gavin Martinez calling from Las Vegas, she said. He says he's your boyfriend and is demanding to speak with you. I'm sleeping, I said. Dorothy's lips twitched. Are you? Absolutely unconscious. That got a small nod from her. 10 minutes later, she came back. He's persistent. Called 3 times. Ruby leaned forward. What did you tell him? Dorothy glanced at me. What would you like me to tell him? I considered all the things I could say, all the explanations I did not have the energy for, and let them go. Whatever you think is appropriate. Something knowing flickered across Dorothy's face. Oh, she said lightly. I'll handle it. Later, Ruby filled me in. She told him you were unconscious and unresponsive. Technically true, since you were out. And that the surgery was complicated and only immediate family was getting updates. I opened one eye. She said that? Ruby grinned. Hospital policy, apparently. How did he take it? She didn't even try to hide her smile. He lost his mind. I woke up the next morning to sunlight through the blinds and a headache that felt welded behind my eyes. Ruby handed me my phone. Brace yourself. The screen lit up. 73 messages, 31 missed calls, all from Gavin. It didn't feel like concern. It felt like panic. What happened? He escalated, Ruby said. He started freaking out after Dorothy told him you were unconscious. Then he FaceTimed at 3 in the morning. Please tell me you didn't answer. Oh, I answered. My eyes snapped open. You did what? She grinned, completely unapologetic. I kept it vague. Said you were in a restricted unit and couldn't have visitors. I'm not in a restricted unit. He doesn't know that. A soft knock interrupted us. Dorothy walked in with her clipboard. Your boyfriend called the nurse's station 17 times last night, she said. 17, Ruby repeated. Dorothy held up a piece of paper. There were tally marks. Actual tally marks. Night shift made a game of it, she said. I stared at the page. You're kidding. 30 years in this job, Dorothy said calmly. You find ways to entertain yourself. What exactly did you tell him? That you were unconscious, she said. I never said critical. He filled in the rest himself. By noon, the mess had moved online. It started with a text from my friend Terrence. Are you okay? Gavin just posted that you're in critical condition. I opened the app, and there it was. Emergency. Flying home from Vegas. Noelle is in critical condition. Please pray. Below it, comments were already flooding in. OMG, what happened? I thought it was routine surgery. Praying for you both. I stared at the screen, something cold settling in my chest. He's performing, Ruby said quietly. I nodded. It wasn't just fear, it was image, narrative, control. Another message from Terrence popped up. He's saying you're on life support. I looked down at the cup of Jell-O on my tray. I'm literally eating Jell-O right now, Ruby snorted. Critical condition. High demand for hospital desserts. Then one comment cut through the rest. Wait, didn't you say she was being dramatic about the surgery? Ruby leaned closer. Who's that? Bethany, one of his friends. Bethany's a real one. A minute later, Gavin replied. That was before complications. Ruby let out a sharp laugh. He really doubled down. Just then, Dr. Williams walked in with his tablet. Well, he said, good news. Everything looks excellent. You're recovering exactly as expected. You'll likely be discharged tomorrow. Ruby perked up. Did you hear that? Perfect recovery. No complications. Dr. Williams blinked, slightly confused. Of course, there were no complications. Ruby turned the phone around and showed him the post. His eyebrows lifted. Oh. He read it, then looked at me. That's a creative interpretation of post-operative recovery. I let out a quiet breath. He wasn't here. Dr. Williams nodded. I see. By that afternoon, Gavin had landed and was spiraling harder. He called again. This time Ruby answered. Which hospital? He demanded. She's sleeping, Ruby said calmly. I don't care. Tell me where she is. Family only right now. I'm her boyfriend. You're the boyfriend who went to Vegas during her surgery. There was silence on the other end. Then, tell me where she is. Ruby hung up. The text came fast after that. This is insane. I have a right to know. You can't keep me from her. I'll call every hospital in the city if I have to. He wasn't bluffing. He started calling hospitals, then driving to them. But Ruby had already requested that I be listed as private. No information released without the patient code. At the time, it had felt unnecessary. Now it felt like a shield. By that evening, Dorothy came in for night shift and said, almost cheerfully, he called again. How many times now? Ruby asked. Dorothy checked her notes. Enough to be impressive. She set the chart down and added, I may have mentioned you were transferred. I blinked. You what? To a specialty unit, she said calmly. What kind of specialty? Ruby asked, covering her mouth to hide a laugh. Dorothy shrugged. I didn't specify. I stared at her. You're letting him imagine the worst. She met my gaze, utterly unbothered. I'm letting him imagine whatever he chooses to imagine. That night I barely slept. Not because of pain. Because everything in my head had gone strangely quiet. The fear about surgery was gone. The worst of that part had already happened, and I had made it through. What was left was the truth. 3 years with someone who could walk out the door on the morning of my surgery and still think he should be welcomed back as if timing didn't matter. I turned my head and looked at Ruby asleep in the chair beside me, one arm hanging awkwardly over the side. She had flown across the country without hesitation. She had simply shown up. By morning, the storm felt like it was happening somewhere outside of me. Inside, everything was clear. Ruby was awake before I was, scrolling through her phone. He drove to 3 hospitals last night, she said. I blinked. He what? 3, maybe more. I let out a long breath. This is insane. No, she said quietly. This is consequence. Later that afternoon, Dr. Williams came back in and confirmed I'd be discharged the next morning. When he left, Ruby asked softly, "You ready for tomorrow?" I knew what she meant. Not just leaving the hospital. Everything after. I took a slow breath. No, I said honestly, but I don't think I need to be. Because whatever happened next wasn't going to be about fixing anything. It was going to be about ending it. Discharge day felt unreal. Ruby was packing my things while I sat on the edge of the bed, moving carefully, still aware of every pull in my body. You good? She asked. Yeah, just thinking. Dangerous habit. I huffed a quiet laugh. Then the door slammed open. Not knocked. Not eased. Slammed. Gavin stood there looking like he hadn't slept. Hair messy, shirt wrinkled, eyes red and wired. Noelle, he breathed. Oh my God, you're alive. I blinked, clearly. He took a few steps forward, scanning me, like he'd expected machines, tubes, something dramatic enough to justify the story he'd built. I've been looking everywhere, he said. Ruby wouldn't tell me anything. The nurses kept saying you were unconscious, I finished. Critical, he snapped. No one said critical, I said calmly. You said critical. He froze. No, Dorothy said you had complications. She said surgery was complicated. That's not the same thing. His gaze flicked to Ruby, then back to me. You both let me think you were dying. I let you think whatever you wanted to think. Silence stretched between us. Then he said, you manipulated me. The word almost made me laugh. Manipulated you? Yes, he said, voice rising. This whole thing is insane. Ruby made a sound under her breath. I lifted a hand slightly to stop her, because I wanted to hear this. I wanted to see how far he would go. You went to Vegas, I said, looking straight at him, during my surgery. It was already planned. So was the surgery, once the doctor scheduled it. That's not the same thing. How? He opened his mouth, closed it, then pivoted. I didn't know it was serious. All surgery is serious, Gavin. But you're fine, he said, gesturing at me like that proved everything. You're literally fine. And there it was. The truth of him. If the ending had been worse, then he could have told himself he cared enough. But because I survived, because things went well, he wanted the whole thing downgraded after the fact. Yeah, I said quietly. I'm fine. He exhaled like that should settle it. Exactly. No, I said. That stopped him. No thanks to you. The words came out clean and final. He sank into the visitor chair. I left Vegas early. I gave up 2 days of my trip. I stared at him. Do you want a medal? His head snapped up. I was worried sick. Were you? Or were you worried about how it looked that you weren't here? His expression answered before his mouth did. I posted, he said quickly. I asked people to pray. After someone called you out, Ruby cut in. He turned to her sharply. What? Bethany, she said. The one who reminded everyone you called Noelle dramatic. His face went red. I was venting. To everyone except me, I said quietly. That landed. He stood up again and started pacing. This is so messed up. I'm the victim here. Ruby actually laughed. The victim of what? Manipulation, emotional terrorism. I blinked. Emotional terrorism. Hearing it out loud made it sound even more ridiculous. Gavin, I said slowly, you left me for Vegas. It was planned. And so was removing a tumor from my body. He raked a hand through his hair again. I can't believe you're taking her side, he snapped at Ruby. I'm taking the side of the person who had surgery, she shot back. Just then, the door opened and Dorothy walked in with a folder. She took one look at Gavin, then smiled. Oh, she said lightly. Good, you found us. Gavin straightened, like he was about to defend himself. How was Vegas? She asked. The question landed like a slap. His mouth opened, then closed. Dorothy didn't press. She just turned to me. You've been a model patient, she said. Then she glanced at Ruby. And your sister's been exactly what you needed. After a beat, she added, real family shows up when it matters. Gavin looked like he wanted to disappear. I almost felt bad. Almost. We're leaving, he said suddenly, grabbing for control. I'll take you home. I shook my head. Actually, I'm going with Ruby. What? She's staying at a hotel nearby. I'll be there for a few days. That's ridiculous. We live together. Doctor wants someone monitoring me around the clock for the first week, I said calmly. Ruby took time off work. Vegas is over, he said. I came back. 2 days early, Ruby muttered. He ignored her and looked at me. I'm here now. I looked back at him, really looked at him. And for the first time, I didn't see my boyfriend. I saw someone who showed up late and expected it to count the same. It's not the same, I said quietly. What isn't? Showing up after everything's done. Silence fell again. Heavy this time. Final. The room stayed quiet after that. Not tense. Settled. Like the argument was over and all that remained was outcome. Gavin stared at me. You're really doing this? I reached for my phone on the table beside me. I've already arranged for movers, I said calmly. I'll be out by the end of the month. That hit him harder than anything else. You're leaving me? I'm choosing to recover with people who actually show up. This is about a trip. No, I said. It's about what that trip showed me. He clenched his jaw. I came back. After you thought she was dying, Ruby said flatly. He ignored her, eyes locked on me. I didn't know it was that serious. I held his gaze. You didn't want to know. That one landed clean. Because it was true. He had every chance to listen, every chance to understand. He just chose not to. This is insane, he muttered, pacing again. 3 years, Noelle. 3 years, and you're just walking away? I didn't walk away, I said. You did. He stopped. What is that supposed to mean? You left on the morning of my surgery. It was a trip. It was a choice. For once, he had nothing to say. Then he tried one last angle. What are people going to think, he said. Everyone saw my posts. Everyone knows I rush back. You're just going to make me look like the bad guy? I almost smiled. Not because it was funny. Because it was predictable. You have 2 options, I said. He frowned. What? Tell them I made a miraculous recovery. Or tell them the truth. And what's that? That you went to Vegas during my surgery and only came back when it started making you look bad. His face went red. That's not... Pick whichever version you can live with. He stared at me for a long second, then grabbed his phone. Fine, he snapped. Do whatever you want. And just like that, he walked out. No apology. No goodbye. Just the sound of this door closing behind him. Again. 20 minutes later, Ruby's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and raised an eyebrow. Oh, this is rich. She turned the screen toward me. A new post from Gavin. Some people can't handle strong, independent men who have their own lives. Grateful Noelle is okay, but shocked by the manipulation. Need my people more than ever. I stared at it, then at the comments flooding in underneath. You were in Vegas during her surgery. Independent is different from selfish. Didn't you call her dramatic? This isn't the flex you think it is. Ruby let out a low whistle. Yeah, that's not going the way he thought. Within minutes, the post disappeared. Deleted. By the time we left the hospital, the air outside felt different. Not lighter, clearer. Ruby helped me into the passenger seat of her car, careful with the seatbelt so it wouldn't press against my side. You okay? She asked. I nodded. Yeah, and I meant it. Because for the first time in weeks, there was nothing left hanging. No hope clinging to something that had already shown me exactly what it was. Back at Ruby's hotel, my phone buzzed with messages from mutual friends and even a couple of Gavin's friends. He's really messed up. He didn't mean it like that. He's devastated. I read them and set the phone down. Cool, I said quietly. Ruby glanced over. You gonna respond? I shook my head. No, because I didn't need to. Whatever he felt now, regret, embarrassment, panic, none of it changed what he had already chosen. That night, lying in bed, I thought about everything that had happened. Not just the surgery. Everything around it. The calls, the posts, the panic, the performance. And the part that stayed with me most wasn't even what he did. It was what he didn't do. He didn't stay. He didn't listen. He didn't show up. And that told me everything I needed to know. Before I fell asleep, I reached into my bag and pulled out Dorothy's tally sheet. 17 calls. One night, I smiled faintly. Not because it was funny. Because it was proof. When he thought he was losing me, he panicked. But when I actually needed him, he left. Turns out the hospital didn't lie to him. They didn't manipulate him. They just followed policy. My emergency contact was my sister, not my Vegas-bound boyfriend. Recovery went well. My kidney healed. My strength came back. And slowly, everything else did too. But different, stronger, clearer. Because I didn't lose anything that mattered. I just finally saw it for what it was. And let it go. Turns out I was better than fine. I was free.